Hello and good evening, or good morning. My name is Justin Robinson, and today we will be analyzing declining student attention spans in America. This is a topic that I hold near and dear to my heart, as I am a history education major, and thus I feel it important to not only understand if student attention spans are declining, but why, so that me and my fellow education majors might figure out a solution to this. Now, before we truly dive into this, I feel it important to analyze the question of how do you define, student attention span in the first place? And while there are numerous articles debating on exactly what it means to have an attention span, I'm gonna forsake that and go by the general definition, which is how long a student or any other member of the human race is willing to partake within a particular topic without getting distracted. Now, that in and of itself invites numerous other questions, like, for instance, what is a distraction? Well, a distraction is anything that takes attention away from the particular topic, from the particular piece of work or educationary material at hand in this particular context. For instance, phones are perhaps the greatest distraction in the last 30 years. Those rectangular metallic devices have been a near constant source of agony for teachers worldwide ever since they got invented. And another good question would be, all right, say there's a distraction. Does that mean that you just can't have any distractions at all? Well, no distractions is basically impossible. There's always going to be a bird outside the window or the air conditioner or something like that. So another term we have to define is distraction tolerance, wherein distraction tolerance is, essentially what it says on the tin, how much tolerance a particular student or person has for distractions around them and how long that their attention can maintain upon the particular topic in question. With those established, we can move on to the actual subject of this particular discussion. Have student attention spans been declining? The answer from numerous studies, as well as my own in-person interviews, has been a resounding yes. In particular, even before the pandemic, but I'll talk about the pandemic, student attention spans had been declining as a result of the introduction of phones and other such short-form media. Because of the fact that these short-form media deliver such... Okay, well, I should also mention this. One of the main primary blames for declining student attention spans is phones or technology, because these phones can offer near instantaneous bursts of dopamine within the brain, which is a pleasure-seeking chemical that makes it so that they don't have to. Like, a lot of students nowadays don't have to read a good book or watch a movie at the movie theater in order to attain, a feeling of happiness. They just got to open up their phone and go to YouTube Shorts and scroll. This almost immediate sense of satisfaction decreases the amount of time that students are willing to spend on any given subject in order to learn, understand, or find happiness in basically anything. Now, this was a problem in and of itself, but then after the COVID-19 pandemic came around, and things got really bad, as we were all forced to go into quarantine and schools were forced to go online. And as many of my peers can attest, a lot of us did not particularly pay attention to school anymore because we could just turn off our cameras if the teacher did not explicitly disavow that. And so we were just scrolled on our phones or did this or did that during the pandemic. And this massively impacted student attention spans, to the point where some studies are claiming as much as a 20% reduction in student attention spans after the COVID-19 pandemic. As you can imagine, this has been catastrophic on schools. Not to the point where it's a massive crisis, mind you, even though it is a crisis, but to the point where plenty of teachers are having to resort to just locking up phones and using other such methods in order to actually finally gets students' attention spans back on point. Because with this technology, be it the computers that a lot of schools have recently adapted, or phones, irregardless of whether or not the students need them for emergency purposes, they can just, put in an earbud, and suddenly the entire lesson plan gets thrown out the window as they're not paying attention anymore. The dopamine receptors in their brain are so fried that they can't really even pay much attention to anything anymore. Well, they can, but just short form content. Now, the question is, right, given all this, what can we as teachers do about it? Well, there's plenty of theories being advised, one of which is, believe it or not, going back to the old ways of pen and paper, as some studies have found that actually writing stuff down and even vocalizing it is a fantastic way for students to get to reorient their brain back to, attention mode, per se, and get students to, let their dopamine receptors rest and get used to doing something for longer periods of time for that same hit of like, oh, I understand, or happiness, rather. Another good example, which I touched upon previously, is putting away phones or putting away electronics in general, moving away from computers and screens in order to better foster an environment where distractions are limited. In general, limiting distractions as much as possible outside of the, aforementioned air conditioners and birds and whatnot is generally a good idea, though questions of ethical concerns about whether or not students need these phones in order to actually, make emergency calls and whatnot have been raised. So some studies are looking into alternative methods, like, for instance, unique methods of teaching and or breathing exercises and or generalist activities in order to increase student attention spans by constant practice. You can think of it almost like a muscle, your attention span. And these teachers are trying to develop specified workouts and other such routines in order to make it so that they can increase these attention spans once more and almost counteract the effects of these phones and the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus far, however, it is unknown whether or not these teaching practices have had much positive effect upon the students, as unfortunately much of this research is in its infancy stages. Tests are still undergoing, and we won't know much about how to counteract this student attention crisis until probably the 2030s, when a lot of these studies and whatnot resolve.